We're joined live in studio by CTV film critic Richard Krause. And Richard, this passing happened a day before she was going to turn 77.
Today's her 77th birthday. I know it's such a sad thing, but apparently her family was gathered to celebrate her birthday, so they were all with her when she passed away, which at least is something.
And, you know, taking a look at her work, she was always bubbly.
Well, she had a really fascinating life. She came from an abusive background, got married young, divorced young, grew up in California, thought, well, what do I do now? And so she became a model. She did bit parts on television shows. She has a very memorable cameo in the film American Graffiti. She plays, in the credits, she's listed as the blonde in the Thunderbird, but people remembered her because of that one quick scene that she has. She wrote a book of poetry and ended up on the Johnny Carson show. And when she was on the Johnny Carson show, Fred Silverman, who was the head of NBC at the time, saw her and said, oh, she'd be really good for this pilot that we're doing called Three's Company. They had already shot 2 pilots with 2 different people playing the Chrissy Snow character. Neither one of them worked. They said, okay, we'll do it one more time. John Ritter, he's in. Joyce DeWitt, she's in. We just need that third piece of the puzzle. They brought in Suzanne Somers, and the show becomes a giant hit. About 4 seasons later, she says, you know, I'm a big part of this show. I should be making as much money as John Ritter, the man who stars on the show. And she was kind of famous for this at the time. She was one of the first women in Hollywood to stand up and say, I demand extra pay. It didn't work for her. She ended up getting fired from the show, but it kind of set a precedent. And I think sort of set that ball rolling, and it's still rolling today throughout Hollywood. So she, you know, had a colorful early life, and then into the wellness space later on with the Thigh Master and all that. Made $300 million off the Thigh Master alone. So those late night ads were not just fun and games. She was making money off that.
Taking a look at her life, her role behind the scenes, that I did not know that she pushed for equal pay back then.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating story. And it's interesting because John Ritter and Joyce DeWitt, I was reading in Joyce DeWitt's book, weren't entirely on board with her at the time because they felt that she did it too publicly. She went to the press and said, I'm a big star here and I'm not making as much money as the others on the show are. And so they didn't love that. I think now, though, when you look at the cast of a show like Big Bang Theory or Friends, they work in solidarity. And they say, if one gets a raise, we all get a raise. So that is something that I think probably, you know, as I said earlier, got the ball rolling towards pay equity in Hollywood today.
And then what about her role later on in life?
Well, she did a number of other sitcoms. It's not like her television career ended when she was let go from Three's Company. The show went on for another few years. She ended up on a few more sitcoms for years. I mean, she was on shows for multiple years, so she had a successful career there. And then along came the Thigh Master. And it was a time when if you were a celebrity and you were promoting something on television, it was seen as a little step backwards, frankly. It wasn't seen as, you know, something that if you were a legit actor or a legit a star that you would do. But she did it, I guess, you know, saw a business opportunity there. She didn't invent the Thigh Master. She was the spokesperson for it. And as I said, her cut of the deal was $300 million. She was a clever business person who went on to write books. And you know, had a career that lasted for many decades, performing in Las Vegas, all sorts of stuff, multi-talented.
And Richard, as we end, let's talk about legacy.
I think the legacy, I think people will remember Three's Company. When I heard the theme song this morning, today, it just took me back right to when I was a kid watching the show. So I think Three's Company and, you know, frankly, the Thigh Master. I think a lot of us who stayed up late in the 90s watching television will remember those infomercial ads and think of her when we think of that.
I do remember those. You know, talking about the life and legacy of Suzanne Somers, CTV film critic Richard Krause. Richard, thank you.
Thanks for having me.